Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 16 of Welcome to the Dark Sun, also known as the one where we dance. Well, most of us dance, but we'll get to that because it's gonna take a while. So at this point, we are leading up to our final quest, which is to go after Cinder the Defiler, who's chilling in the Black Sands. But first, we had a few other things to do. We had a full table for this session, which doesn't happen super regularly, but that means that we had Salentithius, Dono, Vashti, Drudok, Nibbles, and Bardock. Oh, Bardock and Drudok get me every time. But at least soon the campaign will be over and I won't have to try to remember the difference, although most of the time we just called Drudok Bug because back when the player created his character, we asked him what his gender was and he just said Bug. So, Bug. So if you remember at the end of last session, we talked to the elves, we said, okay, this bride can stay with you, we'll go back and we'll lie about her dying. Well, Bug, aka Drudok, is the best deceiver of our group, and so we pushed it off last session knowing that he was gonna be coming this session, or hoping he would be, and hoping that he could tell the best lie. So that morning we went to House Chesia, Oro came out, and Bug was like, listen, sorry, we went out, we found your daughter dead, and we killed all the elves. Here's proof, here's her nightgown covered in blood, here's Yanzu's bow, sorry. And he was like, well, I can't pay you the full amount. And people in our party were actually like, why not? And it's like, cause she's dead. So he was sad, but I'm sure he'll get over it and just marry off some of his other daughters. From there, we went to visit Haka, so we turned in the quest, got our experience points. He still had a couple of escort tasks for us to do, but we decided to hold off on that for a bit. I wanted to go visit my thri-kreen friend Khalid, and Bug came with me because last session I had ordered some sandworm poison from him and he said it would take about a week to get, and it had been a week, so I went to go pick that up. And then I gave it to Vashti because I wanted one of the bards to have it because they're good with poison. And it was super expensive, but it's also like super deadly. I can't remember exactly what the saving throw is, but it's like 12d6 on a failed saving throw and half on a successful one, so it's gonna do some damage. Khalid also had some more rumors for us. He said that the ziggurat was almost being done painted, that people were referring to it as Calyx Folly. Of course, Bardock was like, they mean Calyx Glory. And also, apparently people are saying that the ziggurat's going to be Calyx Tomb once it's completed, and then there's gonna be a great day of celebrations and games in the Gladiator Coliseum, so we'll see what happens. So we did have a few quests sitting there from Haka, but we decided that we wanted to go look for these Jozals who apparently could find magical items. First though, we went to go sell some extra Crodlu because if you remember, we picked up an extra 4 at the end of last session. And this was quite an event in itself, and I swear this took the most time out of our entire session, was trying to sell these 4 Crodlu. Again, we had Bug with us, who's great at deceiving people, so he managed to sell a Crodlu for 20 GP to a half giant, saying that like this is the best working Crodlu you'll ever get. And considering the going rate for Crodlu in tier is 13 silver pieces, 20 silver pieces was awesome. And then just to enhance it, Nibbles went and like disguised herself and came over and started being like, oh, these Crodlu are great Crodlu. And she was like, I'll pay 17 GP. She meant to say silver pieces, but it was pretty funny. And we managed to sell 2 more as a breeding pair, even though they were both female, to a half elf, I think it was, at 15 silver pieces each. So that was, we were doing all right. Nibbles ended up punching someone, and another person didn't quite work out on the deception, but eventually we sold the final Crodlu for 14 silver pieces. So we made a decent profit. Little did we know later on, Dono would want to buy a bunch of Crodlu. See, because Dono wasn't here when we first started the session, he came a little bit late, so he had no idea that we sold all these Crodlu. So because we've all leveled up to level 8 recently, Bardock can now fly, so he wild shifted into like an arrowhawk. So he was chilling, Nibbles was up with him, and on our chariots, we all set out in search of these Jozals. To say that this went well would be to be lying, because you have about a 30% chance that each Jozal is going to have a magic item. We found the first one, it didn't, and plot twist, the other 3 didn't either. But while we were hunting for the first one, Bardock from the sky had seen this oasis in the middle of these sand dunes. And so after we went after the first Jozal, we decided to go check this out. And it was pretty much the most glorious place we'd ever seen. And if you looked into the water, you could see a castle reflected in it. You couldn't see the castle if you looked right at where it was supposed to be, but there was a guy there standing guard. So we naturally decided to go check it out because we are naturally curious people. So we go up to the guard, he tells us that his name is Mustafa, and we ask if we can come in, so he says that he'll go ask his master, Rakim. A couple minutes later, the castle kind of shimmers into place. It's like this beautiful, like bluish hue. And the guard comes out and he goes, yeah, sure, Rakim says come in. So we come in and Rakim is coming down the stairs looking resplendent in all his fancy clothes. And he's very excited to have guests. He says he hasn't had them for a while. And he welcomes us to the land within the wind, which is part of like the Feywild, if you don't know. So he says, I would love to have you as guests. Let's go eat, and then after there will be dancing. The only caveat is that if you eat, you must dance. Now, even in my notes, because I keep a notebook here, as this is going on, I wrote, this seems suspect to Sal, because this just doesn't seem right at all. So we walk into like the feast hall, and Nibbles loves food, so Nibbles just starts going to town on the buffet, like just starting at one end of the table and just like in a cartoon, just like all the way along. Drinking, eating, whatever. Meanwhile, behind her, checking out the entire situation, is Bardock, who's like, damn, those are some nice shiny cutlery pieces and plates and candlesticks. So he starts very visibly putting them in his jacket, in his backpack, etc. Salentithius comes over and starts to help him, then gets a little bored and goes and explores. We offer Rakim some rations, because Nibbles is the only one that's eaten at this point. We offer Rakim some of our rations and he's like, no, that food's not good. You must eat before you can dance. And Dono is like very suspect also, and he's like, why can't I just dance? Why do I have to eat your food? And we like ask if we can see the ballroom, and he says yes after you eat and all that. So I start to look around, I find a door, I don't hear anything on the other side, and I can't pick it because it's got like some weird magic on it. Dono says, you know, you may have good food here, but on Athos we eat magic fruit. And then Bardock in the corner is like, and the only magic fruit here is you. I don't know if he was talking to Rakim or if he was talking to Dono. It could be either or, because Bardock hates Dono. But once Bardock is happy that he has stolen anything of value, he sits down and starts to drink wine as well. And he's like, drinks a glass of wine, throws the glass of wine in his bag, goes for another one. At this point, Vashti ate as well. And so half of our party is eating, the other half is still not really sure what is going on here. Drudok's really not having it, so he just goes and sits in the lobby on the floor, pouting a little bit about it. And I follow him out into that grand foyer as well, and I found another door, and I listen, I can hear music behind it, and even with like an amazing lockpick, I couldn't get it open. Same situation, weird magic door. Dono then comes out, and he tries to go up the stairs, but the stairs are like a never-ending escalator, he can't get anywhere. So he tries to shoot a bow and arrow up to the landing so he can just like pull himself up, and there's Rakim. And he says, you know, it's a little rude that we're trying to wreck his place and not eating his food, and we can't leave until sunset the next day anyway, so we might as well just stay. I infer that there are people in the ballroom, and I ask him what they eat, and he says that they're just having such a good time that they don't need to eat. So I was like, well, then why do we need to eat? I ate 2 rations, like I can go in here now, and it wasn't working. So Dono goes into the dining room, he comes out with a piece of food, and he says to Rakim, your guard has to eat this, and then I'll go dance. And he's like, don't feed my guard, like he's working, and then he eats the piece of food himself. So Dono goes back and gets another, and he's like, listen, if Mustafa will eat this, I will go eat. And so he's like, okay, you can eat it. So his guard eats it and nothing happens. So Dono's like, oh, okay. So he goes off, eats some food, which he finds amazing. Which just kind of leaves the 2 bugs chilling in the foyer going, something doesn't seem right. And at about this point, Rakim decides, I'm not getting any more dancers. So he takes the 4 of our friends who have eaten and brings them towards the ballroom. I try to leap through the door when it opens and just like force field, basically, I ain't getting in there. But I get a smart idea, and so while they're in the room and they've all started to dance and Rakim's like, yes, dancing, 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 I go down the wall and I start magic missiling the wall, because I figure, yeah, maybe there's a barrier there, but maybe I can get through over here. Well, Mustafa wasn't really having that, so he came over and did kind of start to get up in my grill, said, you know, don't do that or I'm gonna have to fight you, basically. But while I was distracting him, Drudok went behind us and cast Dispel Magic on the ballroom door, and then the people inside could see out, which meant our friends could see out. And they could see that a fight was brewing in the foyer. And we noticed that somewhere along the line, once Bardock got into the ballroom, he wild shifted into a baby Mechalot, and he was just doing the baby Mechalot dance, which apparently is super cute. And then the bugs were in a bit of a situation in the foyer, so fortunately Dono was able to make a save. Nibbles made a save, but then just decided to jump on the baby Mechalot. I'm not really sure what Vashti was doing at this time. I think she was just having a good time. So we had quite the battle going on in the foyer, like Rakeem came out as well, but fortunately Dono and Nibbles came out to join us. While nobody was paying attention, Drudok dispelled magic on the front door so we could see outside. Turned out like no time had passed, which is actually really funny because he had to roll to see like what the situation was outside, and he got normal time. It could have been like time's changing like crazy, but no, just legit normal time, all is well. And after a bit of a battle, Drudok managed to claw Rakeem a lot, and he succumbed to his injuries. And that's when Mustafa said, "You're an idiot." He was the only thing that was keeping this pocket going, that was keeping this castle up. And so everything started to melt away, and all the people that had been dancing in the ballroom with our friends just dispelled into spirits and disappeared, and we just pieced out of that castle as fast as we could, lest we be like sucked into the Fae realm or something. Although considering how much Athos sucks, maybe it would have been for the best. When we got out of the castle, we all had to make wisdom saves to see what we would remember, and of course Salentithius is the only one who fails a save, because he fails every save. Like, especially the important ones, he fails those. So he's got no idea what happened, but everybody else vaguely remembers the dancing and feasting party. After that, like I said, we went after the remaining Jazals, and we found all 3 of them, and none of them had magic items, so we just gave up and started to make our way back to Tyr. That night on first watch, Dono and Salentithius were chilling. Dono had set up some cordon of arrows, and a jaguar managed to get through and jump towards Dono, but he managed to like shoot him and kill him before he landed on him. But then the full weight of this dead jaguar landed on him. And so Salentithius decided to try to help out. And it was like a calamity of errors of us rolling strength checks against each other to see if either of us would be successful. Because Salentithius was like standing on the jaguar as Dono was trying to push it off. And I'm like, let me help. And he was like, just get off. And it was pretty stupid. And then once Dono got out from under it, he skinned it and then waited until Bardock had to wake up for his watch and put it on his head, and Morden was like, "Rawr," and Bardock just was not having it. Bardock doesn't care, he just doesn't care. Oh, and in case you were wondering, Bardock was so happy that the chariot with Dono's face on it got destroyed. He was like just jazzed. So we made it back to Tyr and we started to prepare for our final quest, which is to go after Cinder the Defiler. Bardock's been around the city of Tyr for a while, so he decided to have a nice little walk through his hometown kind of situation. And he was quite enjoying it, and then he got to like the Templar area, which was gated off, and decided, you know what? I haven't been in there. I'm going to wild shape into a spider, and I'm gonna creep my way through and just see what's back there. And he found all these gorgeous, lush, Tendic gardens, which for a druid is pretty awesome. And there's this really cool tree. So he decided to climb it. Well, it happened to be a tree of life. And if you are a druid on Athos and you touch a tree of life, you get a couple special abilities. He got 1 use of each of the following: heal, magic font, cast augury, and divination. And because Bardock's an idiot, or sorry, no. Because Bardock is a fanatic, he was like, I went to Kellic's gardens and Kellic bestowed these gifts upon me. And we didn't really believe him, but he did show us that he could use divination to find out exactly where Cinder was. And so that's what he did. Meanwhile, Dono was out doing his own business, and he was buying 3 of the most glorious, luxurious, and fancy chariots that money could buy. Because he's like, I don't have a use to spend money, I might as well do this. And then we went out to our friend in the fields who has a bunch of Crodlu and bought 12 of the most glorious Crodlu that he had, which was really funny because we just sold 4. Like, we would have had enough Crodlu if we hadn't sold those, and said, I need these delivered to the chariot place tomorrow. So the next day, looking like fancy AF, we jumped into our new chariots and we took off towards the Black Sands. It was about a 2.5-day journey that way. And as it was, nothing happened. Like, we saw some herdsmen at one point, But I mean, for the most part, people tend to avoid the black sands, so why would there be people on the way out to them? And then about midday on day 3, we come to the black sands, and as we get into them a little bit, we see like a faux ziggurat that's been made from the ruins of this place. It's probably about 1/4 of the size of the actual ziggurat, but like it looks exactly like it. And as we're approaching it, from behind it come out a bunch of raiders, like a huge army, and they're all riding Crodlu, and they're coming right towards us. And at their head is a tall raider who's got like an iron helm on, and we know him through like folklore as the Iron Rider. It's about to get serious. And that is where we ended our session for the night, because it was like 11 o'clock and there was no way that we were going to get through these raiders and then to the next step that night. And if we got through the raiders, I'm pretty sure everyone would have kept wanting to push to get to Cinder, and nobody wants to be up till like 4 in the morning playing D&D after like working on a Friday. So as it stands, it looks like next session is going to be our last session of this campaign, which is like super crazy and super exciting because we're not going to leave Dark Sun. I haven't mentioned it, but once this campaign's over, we will be staying on Athos, so that's exciting news. We've already all been talking about building new characters and just getting ready for this next campaign. I have talked to my fellow players, and hopefully sometime this week I will have an updated stats and weapons and armor on what we're looking at now at level 8 versus kind of where we were at level 3. And then assuming all goes well, next Sunday we will take on Cinder and hopefully all come out alive. If you are looking forward to seeing what happens, make sure you do hit that subscribe button so you'll know when I post next. And with that, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. And as we're approaching it, oh, that was not English. And then about midday, use your words properly,